Now you guys, over the past 4 years, and probably in junior high as well, spent lots of time learning how to answer what we call OERs, open-ended responses. That's just another word for short answer. Well, after you have passed all of the EOC tests, this does not stop. You're still, all throughout your life, going to be required to answer something and provide relevant evidence to support your answer. It's just like saying that you dislike somebody, and then the person you say it to is going to say, why? Or how come? You have to give evidence. You can't just say, because. You do not like it when you ask them a question and your parents' response is, because I said so. Do you? You don't like that because you want an answer, correct? You want the evidence to support their answer. Well, that's the same thing with the literary analysis. In math, have you been required at times to show your work that you can prove your answer? That's evidence. In science, when you conduct lab experiments, are you required to take detailed notes to show how you arrived at your answer? No. I bet you are. It's the same thing in English. You read something and then you're asked to analyze it. Well, that's what we have going on in an OER. It's very simple. Now then, if you had me as a freshman, I taught you the SLAM process. But I learned over the years that even though we were accomplished at that, we weren't going deep enough with that process because you need to be able to give your own ideas in regards to your answer, not simply regurgitate what you read and then regurgitate the prompt. So I have developed this new system here. When you see it, the outline of it is like a candy wrapper. Do you see the candy wrapper? Now you want some candy, don't you? Okay, it's a candy wrapper, and let me show you the components of it. First of all, we have the point that we're going to make, which is also known as our thesis statement. You can never escape a thesis statement, can you? It's everywhere. Then we have the good stuff. That's where the candy is located inside of the wrapper. That's where we put a specific example that answers our question, and then we put the specific details from the text embedded. That's why the hamburger quote system is here. But the specific details are embedded with the example to help prove our answer based on what we read. And then we finish the piece of candy or the candy wrapper by using the commentary, which basically proves our point one more time and gives our idea one more time. Now the question towards the question that goes with the text that we just read asks, describe the author's style in this selection. Use evidence from the text to support your answer. Is it asking about the author's fashion style? No. Absolutely not. What is it referring to? The writing style. Thank you for answering. So now I've got to make a plan. How am I going to answer this? So this is my brainstorming page. I want to prove that I understood what I read, but I want to make sure that I give my own ideas. I'm going to think abstractly here. Okay, when you read the article, did it say, "Dear reader, this is a journalistic piece that's written in a professional language"? Did it say that? No, it did not. I was able to figure out on my own that this was journalistic writing because it was written for a newspaper, and it's very professional, non-informal. That's my idea. Do you think that was hard for me to arrive at? No, it wasn't. It's simple. It's so simple it doesn't even seem plausible. Okay, so how can I prove that? Well, I can go to paragraph 2 or paragraph 6 if I want to because I annotated and I've got all of that information waiting for me if I choose to use that in my answer. Now, I've also got to be able to comment on my answer. Using my own words, I have to prove what I know. And so I made some notes about my ideas and thoughts in regards to my answer about the evidence being about the newspaper being journalistic and professional. I said it's typical of what one might expect in a newspaper editorial. And based on my annotations, I can go back to paragraphs 2, 4, and 11 and use any of that information there if I want to prove that. I also said that it establishes the style by presenting a thesis and a factual details for support. I know it's an expository piece. It's informative with a little bit of persuasion in it because it was an actual editorial. And I've made note of where I can find information in the paper or in the text to prove my answer. Are you with me so far? So, I sat down, got my information, decided, you know what, I'm going to write it out just to make sure I'm on the right track. So you'll notice the very first thing on the candy wrapper is the point, the thesis. So in the top box, I have written my thesis, which says, the author's style is journalistic and professional. It is typical of what one might expect in a newspaper article. Have I directly answered the question? Yes, I have. I said that the style is what?
Journalistic.
And?
Professional.
And it's what one might expect from a? That's right. I thought of that on my own. Now then, I have to prove it. I have to prove it. That's all I have to do now. This is where the good stuff is. The specific example and the specific details is where the candy sits. So we want to unwrap that for the reader. So my specific example is this. The author establishes this opinionated writing style by presenting a thesis and supporting it with factual details. Okay? There's my idea for my answer. Now, how do I back that up? Well, I went back to my notes that I made about my textual annotations, and I'm going to weave those in there. That's why I use the hamburger quote method. The hamburger quote method is simple. You would not take a noodle and just throw it on the wall to see if it sticks and is ready to eat. We see it on TV, but in real life people don't do that because you have to clean it up. Are you with me? So you don't do that with a quote. You don't just throw it in there and see if it sticks. No, you carefully plan it. And I know that you are probably just like me. When you make your hamburger, you have a certain system of how it goes together. Do you have a certain place that you put your mayonnaise, mustard, or ketchup? I like mine between the meat and the cheese. That way it doesn't make my hamburger bun soggy. That's important to me.
I don't know either.
I put mayonnaise. I'm a mayonnaise girl.
Under the cheese?
Yes, under the cheese, between the bread, between the meat. That way, my hamburger bun doesn't get soggy because then it falls apart. So, that's totally off topic, but I'm hoping that you're getting the image that I am painting. Okay, listen.
For me, either way, the material is going to be in the burgers.
Well, that's true. But that in writing is what can get you in trouble. It's like throwing that noodle or throwing that quote and hoping that it sticks. So you carefully plan it out, which is what I did. I embedded my quotations within my sentence so that I can prove my answer. So here I go. I wrote Sledge, which happens to be the author's last name, maintains that presidents have been called to redefine their roles during difficult times. Ronald Reagan had, and then here's my quote, to show our country a particular kind of leadership, end quote, when the Challenger exploded. I have embedded textual evidence within my sentence in order to prove my example, which proves my answer. But me, wanting to go a little bit above and beyond to secure that good score, I went ahead and added just a little bit more detail. I said he had to, quote, redefine how we expect our presidents to respond during national tragedies, end quote. And now we look to our leaders, quote, to help us make sense of national disasters. I have thoroughly supported my answer as to why the author's style is journalistic and professional and that it's typical of what one might expect. Now then, my commentary. The end part of the candy wrapper system here. This is where I include my idea again and I point back to my thesis statement. I said the language is slightly formal, since it is a serious piece. I said the author wrote the editorial to inform his readers by presenting the facts in a polished and newsworthy manner. If I put that all together, it's going to look like this on my paper. But I have to double check myself because I want that score point 3. So I'm going to go in and highlight my thesis statement yellow. I'm going to highlight my example blue. I'm going to highlight my example pink. And I'm going to highlight my commentary green. And if I am missing any of that, then I know I need to go in and fix it. So, whoops. Did I do it? Did I accomplish everything I needed to?
Yes.
I did. I accomplished everything I needed to. I have my thesis, and it answers the question. I gave an example from the text that proves my thesis that's answering the question. And then I used details and embedded the details within my sentences to show that I understood what I read. And then I gave my commentary and tied it all together. Now, after we finish writing such things, we move on to what I call Survive the Writing Challenge with a big green snake, a scary snake on there. Within the writing challenge, you are with your group and you exchange OERs and you evaluate them. And then you rank them first, second, third, fourth place. And that's how we learn from each other. We write constructive criticism and then we give them good positive feedback as well. You do not learn from me if I simply take your paper and write all over it. You throw it on the floor or you throw it in the trash. You learn from each other. And then I grade the final draft. Now let's look to see what it takes to get a score point 3 or a score point 2. We do not want 1s and we do not want 0s, so we're not even going to look at those. So let's look at score point 3. To get a score point 3, you show exemplary responses that indicate an accomplished reading performance. Did I have an idea that reflects the awareness of the text? Did I understand what I read, basically? Mm-hmm. Yes, I showed that. Did I give a coherent answer and use ideas from the text to prove myself? Yes, I did. Did my evidence show that it was well chosen? It does. I didn't just throw that quote and see if it stuck. I embedded it and I made sure it matched what I was saying. And did I use my answer, my idea, with my evidence to show that I do in fact get what I read? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I would get a score point 3. Now then, hopefully that was a good reminder of what an OER or a short answer literary analysis looks like. Because from now on, you guys will be doing them on your own.